Very good. Hey, I'm here. I'm Shocka, born and raised in Brooklyn. I am actually New York's first locker. And I'm here just to answer Solo's questions about my history as best I can.
All right. How was it growing up in Brooklyn during your time?
Well, let's face it, just like any other of the African-American families in Brooklyn, you're talking like 60s to 70s. So a lot of us, we weren't what you considered rich or anything like that. But I come from a family of 12, and I'm neither the oldest or the youngest. I'm kind of right in the middle. And one of the things that I had most going for me was my ability to dance and draw. A lot of the dance that I did at that time, before this thing called Soul Train came on, was inspirations from James Brown and a lot of the dances from the 30s and the 40s, because that was my mother's inspiration. And she was really the person to get me to dance more.
And when did you start taking dance seriously, from a hobby to, a way of life?
I think one of the things that happened to make me take it more seriously is in the mid-70s, there was this citywide talent competition, and you had to compete against singers and dancers and bands and all of this. And this was sponsored by a housing authority. And it was my chance to get my friends together. There was about 3 of us, me, a friend, and a cousin, that competed. And when we won the first place title, that kind of sent the message that I should be more serious. We can do this. And therein was the reason for forming the first group, which at that time we called Realism. So that was a combination of robotics and locking, because that was the popular stuff in the early 70s. Before 1975, you didn't hear anything about the electric boogaloo styles or any of that. Didn't exist.
Did you encounter any hardships during the beginning of your career, like maybe racism or favoritism, stuff like that? Did you encounter any of that during your career?
Well, honestly, probably not directly or as often, but indirectly, there was always some form of racism around. I mean, that's just part of the fabric of the 70s coming up. That's why there was that whole soul power movement to help make young black people more proud of being who they are, where they were from, and their history. And it was one of the reasons why Mr. James Brown became a favorite for the dancers, because once he did Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud, it made a lot of us feel, more comfortable being who we are and what we are. The afros, the dashikis, all those types of things like that represented that specific type of culture at that time.
Can you talk about, the ups and downs? Because obviously in the 80s, dance probably was at its peak, then, and then it went down in the 90s, and then it seemed to resurface again, and it went down. Can you talk about the ups and downs of dance, and why do you think that happens so often?
Well, there's different reasons for ups and downs in dance, just like anything else in life. There are things that come in style, like fashion. And then after a certain amount of years, it's out of style. Somebody introduces something new or different. So what you were doing or wearing in the 70s, they no longer would wear it in the 80s. But this is not something that's like just for dance. This was everything. Even today in computers. Early days, you had the typewriter. Nobody wants to go back to the typewriter, but things that get updated, they're just a reflection that technology is forever, but you don't have to do everything the same way. Those things that you could bring back, fashion always comes back. Things that we wore in the 70s, we can wear them in 211. Things, in fact, that we wore in the 50s, we can wear them in 211. The music that makes up some of the concepts of hip-hop music, a lot of that was backdrops from soul music from the 70s, and people were still using old music. So this is a natural thing. Things go and come. In terms of the media and its role, it may have different reasons, you know, because they make things popular, obviously, to benefit the majority of the people in the commercial world. And we have to be flexible enough and mindful enough to decide where we want to fit in. Do we want to fit in the commercial world? That's another side, and there's nothing wrong with it if you choose it. But some of us choose not to be a part of it, and that's fine. It's not whether one is better, it's whether or not it's different and whether or not it matches your purpose. The problem that I see is people have not really identified their purpose. So they become like followers. And I was always taught, my mother used to say, y'all don't need to be no followers. If you're gonna do something, be a damn leader. And that's something that stuck with me for the longest. I always wanted to lead.
And how have you led by example? You know, during your career, you can start from the beginning and lead all the way up to now. Have you been leading by example?
Okay, in a number of ways. First of all, besides the dance, in the communities, we would always have somebody who would look to organize some of the young people, you know, whether it was to put them in a center where they would be tutored in their academics, or whether they wanted to be in sports. I was one of the people that was always picked to be the coordinator. Then when they found out that I really was pretty much balanced in the academics and the performing arts, they asked me to do kind of like a bicultural thing where you can improve in your reading skills, your writing skills, but at the same time, you can participate in our talent shows, you know. So these things made me like a leader in that sense, and people will follow. Of course, now it encouraged them to read more, because for me, I used to share the stories about how I would go to the library. The Schomburg Library, for example, was a library of, still is, black culture. So you get to see all the historical black figures, whether it was in art, music, drama, theater, or whatever. And you can send people to the library to look for things, and they didn't mind because it was related to where they wanted to go.